Go.
Welcome to the Peak Podcast. My name is Kyle Nelson. I got my good buddy, my good co-host here, Mr. Eli Libby. What's up, man?
Happy New Year's, dude.
Happy New Year.
We're back in the studio.
It is.
It's January 2nd.
Yes, 2025. It's going to be a good year. Big year. Big year for a lot of people out there.
It's going to be an amazing year.
A beautiful year. Wait. It's, you know, I think like most people, they say, I'm not really into New Year's resolutions, or the turn of a year is just another day. This year, I feel different. The turn of the year is a big deal, and I'm very excited for it. Lots of change for a lot of people, and people are looking for clarity too. So hopefully we can deliver that today.
Heck yeah, we can. Let's rock and roll, dude.
Let's do it. The Peak Podcast. If you've never visited or listened to it before, it's all about talking to individuals, whether coaches, business owners, entrepreneurs, and really find out what that peak moment was when they had to make a big decision in their life, whether it was starting a new business, starting a family, all types of different stuff. And there's been so many peak moments and so much inspiration we've been able to pull out of this. And if you don't know, we are the co-founders of Peak Fulfillment, which is a self-guided solo retreat program where you go out in solitude and stillness by yourself with a self-guided box of goodies that include workbooks and other exercises and journal prompts to get you that clarity you're looking for to take that next step in life. If you're interested, head over to our website, peakfulfillment.co, learn all about it, reach out, and we'll get you set up. But without further ado, let's bring on Lindsay Guzowski. She is the CEO of the Crucible, a leadership assessment designed for investor-backed company executive teams. Lindsay, welcome to the Peak Podcast.
Guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Lindsay.
Yeah,
excited to have you here. Excited to have you here. I'm glad you're feeling better. I know you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks to have you. Yeah, good to have you back. So let's kick off. A great icebreaker.
Okay.
Is there any type of New Year's resolution that's coming your way? Is there one that kind of stands out to you? Do you do New Year's resolutions? Is there one that kind of comes to mind?
There are two that I do every year, and then a new one for this year. But the two every year is that I'm going to lose that last 5 pounds.
Okay.
And that I'm going to read 52 books. And so that's a book a week. I usually get to somewhere in the high 30s. But if I set a high goal and fail to reach that, at least I'm still reading a ton of books.
That is amazing. Yeah. Is there a book that stood out to you last year in those 30-ish books?
So I read a lot of fiction.
Okay.
And I think that I've been rereading the Perry Mason novels. And so, the old Raymond Burr defense attorney thing that was on in the, it was all black and white. So it must have been the 60s. Oh, cool. But it was actually a book series before that. And the book series is quite a bit grittier than the show ever was. And so it's kind of fun because you get to see the problem solving of how to prove that someone did it or didn't do it. And that's always fun for me.
Love that. It's all about the psyche with that one. How about you?
Really cool.
What's your resolution for this year? Come on, bring it.
My biggest one is going to be around journaling. It will be. I just got this new journal that is really cool. It's kind of a 2-part journal, so it's a morning session and an evening session.
Oh, nice.
And I just got it. My wife got it for me for Christmas, actually. It's
like
called
gratitude and then reflection, or what is it?
Yeah. Actually, it's. Nice. I mean, that's how you'd sum it up. But they're called mantra journals.
Oh, cool.
They're really cool. I was actually meant to show you because it's pretty legit.
Sweet.
So that is what I'm trying to do every day. What about you?
Just be the best version of myself.
Nice.
There's a lot to unfold on that one, but being the best version.
Sure. Yeah, we'll have to save that for another podcast.
Yeah.
Big one.
Yeah, I want to hear that podcast.
Yeah.
I understand how we can all pursue that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Lindsay, thanks again for being here. Just real quick before we dive into the meat of the topic that Kyle kind of introduced, tell us about the Crucible, because when you and I met in the pre-chat, I was really excited about this. A lot of the reasons because of what we do for our program, but just give us a little background on what that is.
Sure. So the Crucible is a leadership assessment that assesses individuals and teams, but it's built specifically for investor-backed companies. So private equity-backed, venture capital-backed, family office-backed, those types of businesses, because those specific types of companies tend to have different goals than a public company. They're looking for more rapid growth. They're looking to professionalize. They're looking to ensure that they're holding on to the legacy that made that business great to begin with, or that inspired idea that brought someone to that point where they said, you know what, I really need some help and some money to get this to the next level. That's a different world than if you're talking about growing 3.5% as Campbell's soup, right? And so we said, well, a lot of the assessments that are out there aren't measuring what they should be, and also aren't specific enough to the leadership in these types of organizations. And so we went out and built our own. And so it's really useful for individuals to say, what are my strengths that I can maximize? What are the things that I might need to work on? And where are blind spots that I didn't even realize other people were seeing? And then being able to combine that information with the scores of the rest of your team to really put it all together to say, where are we great? Where are we, needing some additional coaching or resources? And how can we really be the best versions of ourselves? To the resolution point.
That sounds like an awesome company that I love to see. We went through something years and back with another company of ours called Trimetrics. And it really allowed us to understand who we are at our core at home. And then when we show up to the office, how do we change? And it was crazy how drastically different, because I relied so much on him to do certain things and he relied on me. And so I didn't have to think about those parts of my life.
Yeah.
It was cool.
That is really cool. You mentioned something in there about things that you measure, kind of unique things that you measure when it's in the private equity backed or investment backed company. What are those things that you measure that might be different from kind of like a bootstrapped company? What are those measurements?
Sure. So there are a number of things that are specifically interesting for these types of spaces. One of them my favorite measurement that we do is we measure both competitiveness, which is often important for people that are in business in general, but we also measure a disdain for losing. And they're different because competitiveness is, do you want to win? And what are you going to do to get that win? And disdain for losing says, I refuse to fail. And knowing your measurements on both those factors can help determine, are you someone who will take that investment mandate and ensure that it happens? Because in a private equity backed environment, for instance, you have to get at least double your money back out of it, or it's an absolute failure. It's a scenario where you want to be getting 3, 4, 5 times the money that was invested, but you have to at least hit a certain level or your investors are going to be really upset. On the flip side, in a venture capital world, they expect a lot of those businesses to fail, but they want to find the ones that can be home runs. And so there are different measures you want to see depending on the type of environment you're in. There's also a measurement that we do we call it engages deeply with stakeholders.
Okay.
And one of the things that's really critical is that you have so many different stakeholders in these types of businesses. You have your investors, where you actually need to make sure you're keeping them happy first and foremost, but that can't get in the way of running your business, because running your business, you have your customers, you have your employees, you have the rest of management, and those are all also stakeholders. And so we want someone who's going to engage deeply across all of those facets and also doesn't have such high levels of empathy for every single one of them that they're putting themselves out there too much and not able to achieve what they need to achieve.
Interesting. Wow. The large span of just where you're at with your company, there's so many different levers and things you have to look at. Like you said, just from the beginning, if you're Campbell Soup, growing 3%, it's a whole different story than if you're bootstrapped. It's interesting. So let's jump into, is it, first understanding, was it around starting the Crucible? Was it a different part of your life maybe? But we talk a lot about transitions and trying to create clarity out of those times so you can make large decisions in life. And, whether it's risky or not, you can make that calculation. But where was there in a time that there was a peak moment where you couldn't figure it out if it was time to make that decision? Was it the Crucible? Was it something else? And what was it that pushed you through to the other side?
I think that there have been several of those in life, and each one, you think it's the peak, and then you look forward and there's another peak that materializes as you get through the fog. I think talking about a couple specifically, and there's an underlying theme to what happened in each of these, but I was, my academic background is in quantitative sociology, and I was in a PhD program, and I knew I didn't want to be a professor. And I was introduced at a conference as the future of American sociology, which is a terrible thing to say about anyone, because that puts incredible pressure on
weight on the shoulders. Yeah, you're the future, Lindsay.
Exactly. Especially when you don't think you want to do the thing they're telling you
for sure
that you're the future of.
For sure.
And so I had to do some real soul searching and went out and got a job in a management development program and literally quit my PhD program.
Wow.
Not finishing the dissertation at that point, because I realized that I had to make that change right then and there, or I was going to be stuck doing something I didn't want to do for a long time. It's thankfully I was able to take those skills and apply them later, but at the time it felt like a complete and utter break. Later, I also, when I was after business school, after doing other things, was working for a private equity fund and got a call from this guy who was running an executive recruiting firm, very small, tiny boutique firm, and said, come on board, join me on this side of the fence, and we are going to build this into something great.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I'm doing a job that I thought was my dream job, and I'm super excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And something inside me said, you have to bet on yourself, and you have to do the thing where you can be the most impactful.
Yeah.
And so in both those situations, I think the feeling was that I was going to get stuck doing something I was very good at in both situations, but that wasn't going to really let me grow as a person and wasn't going to let me realize that next step.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, in the first situation, my family was incredibly supportive. And in the second one, my husband was incredibly supportive, still family, to be able to say, you can do this. And not only can you do this, but you should do this, because it's how you're going to get to that next level of who you can be.
It's amazing.
How do you think, if you didn't have that support, how you would have dealt with it? Because a lot of times you need that
sphere,
that sphere of influence around you. Yeah.
I think I probably would have ended up going with what people who were less convicted about my future and more convicted about their own would have said.
Sure.
It may have ended up in a similar spot, but I don't think I would have gotten there nearly as quickly. And I may have also just gotten stuck, because people have their own motivations and their own goals in life that may not align with yours. Mm-hmm. And so understanding who you can truly trust and people who want to see the best in you and for you, I think is really important in all that. I've also been a person who's cultivated relationships with people I can trust. And I have friends who will tell me the gnarly truth, even when I don't want to hear it, because they know I will respect that.
Sure.
Because it helps all of us to know those things.
Yeah. What would you say to an audience of how to cultivate that group? Because that group of supporters is huge, and you said you've always kind of had that. So how would you recommend somebody cultivate that if they're not the same kind of style or personality that you are?
Yeah, I think that it's important to find people that you can trust, and people that when you're around them, you feel like you're able to be truly you. It's not necessarily that you're able to be the best version of you, because that's still only a version. You need to be able to be all of you. Yes. And sometimes that's with our parents or our spouses or with an old friend. Yep. There are people that I trust to give me advice on things that I would never invite out for dinner.
Totally.
Because
it's a good find.
Don't necessarily, want to spend a ton of time with them as socially, but I do really value what they're going to share. Yeah. And the only way to develop those relationships is to be that person for someone else as well.
Sure.
And I think that it's working on how can you open yourself up to be vulnerable, to give someone else the space
Yep.
to be who they are. That it's not trying to just simply get what you need out of someone or to have them serve your interests in life.
So true. I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like we're thinking the same thing. Are you thinking the same thing
Go for it.
about the emotional bank account?
Yep, go for it.
We always say something about pouring into somebody's emotional bank account and without the assumption to receive anything back. But the more and more that you pour into somebody, it will be reciprocated at some point.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great mindset to frame it up like you just did.
Yeah. And sometimes you can pull from that emotional bank account after
Heck
putting
you can.
into it. You can pull from it, and it's received a lot better. Lindsay, as we kind of wrap things up, if there was one thing that from years of experience and just these transitions you've gone through that you would like to share with our audience to have a good takeaway, what would that be?
Oh, good question. I think it's that we're all constantly growing and learning. And I think that it's part of why when we built the assessment, I mean, we went through literal years of testing, validation, bias testing, making sure that it all worked.
Yep.
But one of the core parts of the Crucible that we wanted to ensure was in there was that if people work on the items that they see where they find themselves deficient or they aren't being fully realized in their team or are strengthening the areas that they're like, I'm good at this, but I could be great, your scores should change and they should reflect that ability to be different. And so that ability to learn and grow and the idea that we all have that potential, I think is really important. And to take advantage of that. I mean, it's not just the emotional bank accounts you need to invest in, it's also your personal, self-worth account. That if you can dive in there and invest in yourself and invest in how to be, calling back here, a better you, so that you can achieve your goals for whatever that time frame is, that's amazing. And those goals may grow and shift.
That's true.
But put your efforts into trying to make yourself the best person to get there.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Be adaptable and be curious.
Yeah.
I think those are really
Very
cool
important.
takeaways that you've shared, Lindsay. So thank you.
That's a much better way of saying it.
No, I love it. I was just that's how I think about it, and that it's kind of a heartbeat that I'm going to be going off of this year. So it's just stuck in my head.
Good.
Well, Lindsay, as we wrap it up, where could people connect with you, get in contact, find more information?
Yeah, great. So thecrucible.com is the easiest place to come find us. You can learn all about the Crucible there. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I think there is another Lindsay Guzowski out there, but certainly not another one who is affiliated with anything called the Crucible.
Yes, perfect.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And I know there's a lot of great takeaways.
Huge
takeaways.
Thank
you.
Love it.
Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate everything you do and wish you the best in growing and learning this year as well.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay. Awesome.
That was
awesome.
Awesome. I love hearing just the amount going through a PhD program and then leaving it.
Yeah.
Like that was stuck in my head the whole time. That is painful.
It is painful.
When I hear people do that, I give them so much kudos.
For sure.
Like,
and knowing that it's like something you don't really want to do, and they're saying like, "Hey, you're the future of it."
Yeah, because you set out wanting that PhD. Like that is so much work.
Yeah.
So much mental and pulling from that, and then you end up finding what you love.
But being curious, to her point.
Curious, yes. Same.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Peak Podcast. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to listen to great guests just like Lindsay. We can't wait to have you along on the next episode of the Peak Podcast.
See you guys.